The Great Hall of Apex Prime was filled with beings from across the galaxy. Creatures with scales sat beside those with tentacles. Beings of pure light floated next to massive stone giants. 43 species had sent their leaders to this neutral station, and they had all come for one reason. Humans. High Commander Vorik stood at the center of the hall. His gray skin was smooth like polished metal, and his 4 eyes scanned the crowd with cold precision. He had lived for 600 years. He had commanded fleets that burned worlds. He had never felt fear. But humans made him uneasy. Fellow members of the Galactic Coalition, Vorik began, his voice echoing through the chamber. We have watched the species called humanity for 70 standard years. In that time, they have spread from one world to 17. They adapt faster than any species in recorded history. They breed quickly. They learn quickly. And, most disturbing of all, they do not respond to threats the way other species do. A hologram appeared above the hall. It showed a human colony. Ships were landing. Soldiers were marching. The Coalition had sent a warning to this world 3 months ago. They had told the humans to stop expanding or face consequences. The humans had responded by building more ships. They do not show proper fear responses, Vorik continued. When we threaten them, they do not submit. They do not retreat. They do something we cannot explain. The hologram changed. It showed human soldiers receiving news of the Coalition's warning. They were supposed to look scared. They were supposed to panic. Instead, they were laughing. The hall fell silent. Every alien in the room stared at the image. They saw humans slapping each other on the back. They saw humans making jokes. They saw humans smiling at the promise of war. This is madness, said General Thessa, a tall creature with blue scales and sharp teeth. No species laughs at death. Humans do, Vorik replied. And that is why they must be stopped. Before they spread further. Before they grow stronger. Before their madness infects the galaxy. The vote was quick. 43 species raised their support. War was declared against humanity. Vorik watched the final count with satisfaction. Humans were young. They were outnumbered. They had fewer ships, fewer soldiers, and inferior technology. The war would be over in months. He was certain of it. 10,000 light-years away, Captain Tesu sat in his chair on the bridge of the Starship Endurance. He was a tall man with broad shoulders and calm eyes. He had served in the human fleet for 20 years, and he had learned one important thing in that time. The universe was always trying to kill you. The only reasonable response was to laugh at it. Captain, said Lieutenant Hannah from her station. She was young, sharp, and never missed a detail. We are receiving a transmission from Coalition space. It is marked urgent. Put it on screen, Tesu said. The main screen flickered. High Commander Vorik's face appeared. His 4 eyes stared out at the bridge crew with cold contempt. People of Earth, Vorik said. The Galactic Coalition has declared war upon your species. You have 40 standard days to surrender your colonies and return to your home world. If you refuse, you will be destroyed. This is not a threat. This is a fact. The transmission ended. Silence filled the bridge. Every crew member looked at their captain. They waited for fear. They waited for panic. They waited for orders to run. Tesu leaned back in his chair. He scratched his chin. Then, he smiled. 43 species, he said. That is a lot of paperwork. Lieutenant Hannah burst out laughing. Then, Sergeant Wujin laughed from his station near the weapons console. Then, the entire bridge was filled with laughter. Tesu pressed the ship-wide communication button. Attention all crew. This is your captain. We have just received a declaration of war from the entire galaxy. I want everyone to know that dinner will still be served at the regular time, and the movie night schedule will not change. That is all. Cheers echoed through the ship. In the medical bay, Dr. Yuna heard the announcement and shook her head with a smile. She was the ship's doctor and psychologist, and she had studied human behavior for 30 years. She knew exactly why her species laughed at danger. It was not because they were crazy. It was not because they did not understand the threat. It was because laughter was the oldest human weapon. Older than fire. Older than tools. When ancient humans faced lions in the dark, they laughed to show they were not afraid. When plagues killed millions, survivors told jokes to keep going. When wars destroyed cities, soldiers sang songs in the trenches. Laughter told the universe, "You have not beaten us yet." Dr. Yuna made a note in her research file. She had a feeling this war would teach the galaxy something important about humanity. On the colony world of Nova Incheon, Sergeant Woojin gathered his squad in a small room. They were ground forces, the soldiers who would fight face to face with the enemy. They should have been scared. They were not. "All right, everyone," Woojin said. He was a stocky man with a loud voice and a louder laugh. "The galaxy wants to kill us. I say we make them work for it." Private Daeho stood in the corner. He was young, barely 20 years old. His hands were shaking. This was his first assignment, and he had not expected to face a galactic war. Woojin noticed the young soldier's fear. He walked over and put a hand on Daeho's shoulder. "Hey," Woojin said quietly. "You scared?" Daeho nodded. He could not lie. "Good," Woojin said. "That means you are smart. Only fools feel no fear. But here is the secret, kid. Fear is just excitement with bad marketing. The aliens out there? They expect us to cry and beg. They expect us to break. So we are going to do the one thing they will never understand." "What is that?" Daeho asked. Woojin grinned. "We are going to laugh in their faces. And, when they see us laughing, they are going to wonder what we know that they do not. That doubt? That confusion? That is our weapon." Daeho took a deep breath. He did not feel brave. He did not feel ready. But he understood what Woojin meant. If you could laugh at death, death lost some of its power. Back on Apex Prime, High Commander Vorik sat alone in his quarters. His staff had brought him reports from human space. They had intercepted communications. They had analyzed human responses. Every report said the same thing. The humans were laughing. Vorik did not understand. He had destroyed civilizations. He had made entire species kneel before him. He had seen fear in 1,000 different forms. But he had never seen a species laugh at its own destruction. He told himself it was madness. He told himself it was ignorance. He told himself that humans simply did not understand how hopeless their situation was. But, deep in his ancient mind, in a place he did not like to visit, Vorik felt something cold settle in his chest. It was doubt. And, for the first time in 600 years, High Commander Vorik wondered if he had made a terrible mistake. 3 months had passed since the declaration of war. The Galactic Coalition had gathered its forces. Ships from 43 species filled the darkness between stars. Soldiers trained for battle. Commanders planned their attacks. General Thessa was given the honor of the first major assault. She chose her target carefully. A human colony world called Nova Incheon. It was far from Earth, poorly defended, and home to only 2 million humans. She brought 50,000 soldiers. The humans had 3,000. Thessa stood on the bridge of her command ship and watched the planet grow larger on her screen. Her blue scales shimmered in the dim light. Her sharp teeth were visible when she smiled. "This will be quick," she told her officers. "The humans will see our numbers and surrender. They have no choice." Her ships entered orbit. Her soldiers loaded into drop ships. Her communications officer sent the standard surrender demand to the planet below. The response came 30 seconds later. It was a picture. A human soldier was holding a sign. The sign said, "Welcome to Nova Incheon. Population, you are about to find out." The soldier was smiling. Thessa stared at the image. She did not understand. This was not how species behaved when facing death. This was not normal. "They are insane," she whispered. "General," her officer said. "Should we proceed with the landing?" Thessa shook her head to clear her thoughts. "Yes. Begin the assault. Show them what happens to those who mock the coalition." On the surface of Nova Incheon, Sergeant Wu Jin watched the enemy ships descend from the sky. There were hundreds of them. They blotted out the sun. They filled the air with the roar of engines. 3,000 humans stood ready to face 50,000 aliens. Wu Jin turned to his squad. They were hiding behind a barricade made of broken vehicles and metal sheets. Private Daeho was among them, his rifle gripped tight in his hands. "All right, everyone," Wu Jin said. "Here is the plan. We are going to make them pay for every step. We are going to hit them from the shadows. We are going to make them fear every corner, every building, every shadow." "And if we die?" someone asked. Wu Jin grinned. "Then, we die tired. But, we take as many of them with us as we can. And, we do it with a smile." The first coalition soldiers landed. They moved in perfect formation, their weapons raised, their sensors scanning for threats. They expected resistance. They expected defensive positions. They did not expect the music. Across the city, speakers came to life. An old Earth song began to play. It was loud, fast, and full of energy. The humans had chosen it carefully. The coalition soldiers stopped. They looked at each other in confusion. Their translators tried to process the words. They could not understand why the enemy was playing music during a battle. Then, the ambush began. Humans appeared from windows, from rooftops, from underground tunnels. They fired in short bursts, then vanished. They shouted jokes across the battlefield. They laughed as they ran from cover to cover. Wu Jin led his squad through the streets. They hit a coalition patrol, killed 6 soldiers, and disappeared before the enemy could react. "That is 12 for me," Wu Jin shouted over the comms. "Anyone beating my score?" 14. Lieutenant Hannah replied from another sector. "Try to keep up, old man." Private Daeho followed his sergeant through the chaos. His heart was pounding. His hands were shaking. But, he noticed something strange. He was not as scared as he expected. The laughter helped. The jokes helped. Every time someone made a comment over the comms, the fear got a little smaller. It was still there, but it was not controlling him anymore. He saw a coalition soldier step around a corner. Daeho raised his rifle and fired. The alien fell. "Good shot, kid," Wu Jin called. "That is your first. How do you feel?" Daeho thought about it. "Alive," he said. Wu Jin laughed. "That is the only feeling that matters." General Thessa watched the battle reports with growing horror. Her forces were dying. Not in large battles, but in small ambushes. Humans appeared from nowhere, struck fast, and vanished. Her soldiers could not find them. Her sensors could not track them. And, everywhere, on every channel, she heard human laughter. "Why are they laughing?" she demanded. "They are outnumbered. They are dying. Why are they laughing?" Her officers had no answer. One of her captains, a young officer named Vor, stepped forward. His hands were trembling. "General," he said. "The soldiers are reporting problems." "What problems?" "Psychological problems. They cannot fight enemies who laugh. They cannot process it. Some soldiers have stopped moving. They just stand there, waiting for death. Others have started running. they refused to advance. Thessa felt cold. This is impossible. Our soldiers are trained for war. They are trained to fight enemies who fear them, Vor said quietly. The humans do not fear us. The humans think we are funny. The battle lasted 3 days. 3 days of constant ambushes. 3 days of human voices laughing on every channel. 3 days of coalition soldiers breaking down, one by one. On the morning of the 4th day, General Thessa ordered a retreat. She had lost 30,000 soldiers. 60% of her invasion force. The humans had lost 400. As her ships lifted off, a final message came from the surface. It was Sergeant Wu Jin's voice. Thanks for visiting Nova Incheon. Please leave a review. We recommend 5 stars. Thessa turned off the communications console. Her claws were shaking. She had fought in 12 wars. She had never lost. She had never felt fear. But, now, watching that planet shrink behind her, she felt something she could not name. It was not fear exactly. It was worse. It was the feeling that she did not understand her enemy at all. In the medical tent on Nova Incheon, Dr. Yuna worked through the night. There were wounded everywhere. Some would live. Some would not. The air smelled of blood and antiseptic. A young soldier lay on a table in front of her. His wounds were severe. He had minutes left. Doc, he whispered. Did we win? Yuna took his hand. Yes. They are retreating. The soldier smiled. It was weak, but it was real. Good. Tell my squad, tell them I died with a smile. He closed his eyes. His hand went limp. Yuna stood there for a long moment. Then, she wiped her eyes and moved to the next patient. There was no time for grief. Not yet. But, later, when the battle was truly over, she sat alone and recorded her thoughts. Human laughter is not denial, she said into her recorder. It is not madness. It is not ignorance. It is defiance. It is the oldest human weapon. When we laugh at death, we are saying, you do not own us. You do not control us. We will face you on our own terms. She paused. Outside, she could hear soldiers celebrating. Someone was playing music. Someone was telling jokes. The coalition does not understand this, Yuna continued. They think laughter means we are not taking them seriously. They are wrong. We laugh because we take everything seriously. Life. Death. Freedom. Love. We laugh because crying takes too much energy. We laugh because it is the only sane response to an insane universe. She turned off the recorder and walked outside. The stars were bright above Nova Incheon. Somewhere out there, the coalition was planning their next attack. But, tonight, the humans had won. And, they celebrated the only way they knew how. With laughter. Emissary Lirith had spent her entire life studying other species. She was old by her people's standards, nearly 400 years. Her skin was pale silver, and her eyes were large and black like deep pools of water. She had learned to understand 30 different species. She had solved conflicts that seemed impossible. She was the coalition's greatest expert on alien minds. But humans confused her. After the disaster at Nova Incheon, High Commander Vorik had summoned her to his ship. He sat behind his desk, his 4 eyes heavy with frustration. I need you to understand them, Vorik said. I need to know why they laugh. I need to know how to break them. Lirith nodded slowly. I will need access to human prisoners. You will have it. There is a prison ship called Silent Thought. It holds 200 human captives. Study them. Find their weakness. Lirith bowed and left. As she walked to the transport bay, she felt something unusual. Curiosity. Real, burning curiosity. She had studied many strange species, but none had ever laughed at their own death. She wanted to understand why. The prison ship Silent thought was cold and gray. It floated in the darkness between stars, far from any human rescue. The human prisoners were kept in small cells, given enough food to survive, and watched by guards at all times. Lirith walked through the corridors, observing the captives through the transparent walls. She expected to see broken spirits. She expected to see despair. She expected to see the normal signs of defeat. Instead, she saw humans talking to each other through the walls. She saw them playing games with imaginary cards. She saw them teaching each other songs. She saw them laughing. Lirith stopped at one cell. Inside was a human male. He was young, perhaps 30 years old. His left arm was wrapped in bandages. He had been wounded during his capture. He looked up at her and smiled. "Hello," he said. "Are you here to study me?" Lirith was surprised. Most prisoners did not speak so freely. "Yes. I want to understand your species." "Ask me anything," the human said. His name was Jin Wu, according to his file. "I have nothing better to do." Lirith activated her recording device. "When you were captured, you smiled at your captors. You had been shot. You were bleeding. Why did you smile?" Jin Wu thought about it. "Because crying takes too much energy. And I would rather save my energy to punch someone later." "That does not make sense. You were in pain. You were defeated. The normal response is grief." "Maybe for your species," Jin Wu said. "For humans, grief comes later. In the moment, we laugh. It is how we stay sane." Lirith made notes. "Explain." Jin Wu leaned back against the wall of his cell. "Do you know the history of my species?" "Some of it." "Then, you know we have faced death many times. Diseases that killed millions. Wars that destroyed cities. Natural disasters that wiped out entire populations. We have looked into the darkness again and again. And we learned something important." "What?" "The darkness does not care. The universe does not care. Death does not care about our feelings. So why should we give it the satisfaction of our tears? We laugh because laughter is the one thing we can control. We laugh because it is our way of saying, I am still here. I am still me. You have not won." Lirith stared at him for a long moment. She had studied dozens of species. She had never heard anything like this. "You laugh because you are afraid," she said slowly. "But you do not want fear to control you." Jin Wu pointed at her. "Now you are understanding." Over the next weeks, Lirith interviewed dozens of human prisoners. She heard the same ideas again and again, expressed in different ways. She studied human history. She read about their wars, their plagues, their disasters. She learned about something called gallows humor, jokes made by people facing death. She began to understand. Human laughter was not madness. It was armor. It was a shield against despair. When humans laughed at danger, they were not denying the danger. They were refusing to let it break them. While Lirith studied, the war continued. Captain Taesu and the Endurance led raids against coalition supply lines. They appeared from nowhere, struck fast, and vanished before the enemy could respond. And, always, they laughed. Lieutenant Hannah had developed a new tactic. She would broadcast fake distress signals on coalition channels. But, instead of calls for help, the signals contained human comedy routines. Coalition communications officers would intercept the signals, expecting tactical information, and instead hear jokes about alien cooking or strange mating rituals. It drove them crazy. "I do not understand this," one coalition officer reported. "They are mocking us." "Why are they mocking us?" Captain Taesu heard about the report and laughed. "Because mockery is a weapon," he told his crew. When you mock someone, you take away their power. You make them small. You make them doubt themselves. The Endurance encountered a coalition fleet twice its size near the Orion sector. Tae-Soo was outnumbered and outgunned. Any other captain would have retreated. Tae-Soo opened a communication channel. "Attention coalition fleet," he said calmly. "This is Captain Tae-Soo of the Endurance. I would like to inform High Commander Vorik that his strategy is bad, his ships are ugly, and his mother was probably a broken calculator." The coalition fleet did not respond. They did not know how to respond. Insults were not part of their tactical training. While they tried to process the message, Tae-Soo launched a surprise attack. He disabled 3 capital ships before the enemy could react, then jumped to safety. "Sir," Lieutenant Hannah said as they escaped, "that was brilliant." "It was simple," Tae-Soo replied. "Confusion is a weapon. And nothing confuses people like someone who refuses to take them seriously." Lirith presented her findings to High Commander Vorik. She stood before him in his private chambers, her notes organized carefully. "I have studied the humans extensively," she said. "I understand them now. Then, tell me how to defeat them." Lirith hesitated. "I do not think you can. Not in the way you want." Vorik's 4 eyes narrowed. "Explain." "Human laughter is psychological armor. It protects their minds from trauma. When they laugh at danger, they are not being foolish. They are being strong. Fear cannot penetrate what refuses to take death seriously. That is nonsense. All species can be broken." "Can they?" Lirith asked quietly. "We have fought wars for 10,000 years. Our enemies always broke because they feared death more than we did. But humans do not fear death the way other species do. They have made peace with it. They accept it. And so they laugh at it." Vorik stood up. His tall form cast a shadow across the room. "You are saying they cannot be defeated?" "I am saying they cannot be defeated through fear. If you want to beat them, you must find another way." Vorik dismissed her with a wave of his hand. "They are primitives. They are animals. We will break them with numbers and firepower. Your psychology means nothing." Lirith bowed and left. But, as she walked back to her quarters, she thought about Jinwoo in his cell. She thought about his smile. She thought about his words. "The darkness does not care." She whispered to herself, looking out at the stars. "You cannot break what bends. You cannot kill what does not fear death." She wondered if Vorik would ever understand. She suspected he would not. And she suspected that failure to understand would cost the coalition everything. 1 year had passed since the war began. High Commander Vorik had grown tired of small defeats. He had gathered the largest fleet in coalition history. Ships from all 43 species filled the space around Apex Prime. He called his plan Operation Silent Dawn. The strategy was simple. Attack 7 human colonies at the same time. Stretch their defenses thin. Crush them with overwhelming force. End the war in a single massive strike. Vorik stood before his commanders and spoke with cold confidence. "The humans have been lucky. They have survived through tricks and mischief. But luck runs out. We will bury them so deep that their laughter will turn to screams." The attack began at midnight, Galactic Standard Time. On the colony ship Busan's Hope, Dr. Yuna woke to the sound of alarms. The ship was not a warship. It was a medical vessel filled with wounded soldiers and civilians fleeing destroyed colonies. It was supposed to be safe. It was not safe anymore. "All hands to stations," the captain announced. "Coalition fleet approaching." "This is not a drill." Yuna ran to the medical bay. Hundreds of patients lay in beds, their wounds wrapped in bandages. Nurses and doctors rushed between them, checking vital signs and preparing for the worst. A young nurse grabbed Yuna's arm. "Doctor, what do we do?" We have no weapons. We cannot fight. Yuna looked at the fear in the young woman's eyes. She understood it. She felt it too. But she knew that fear would not help anyone. We do our jobs, Yuna said firmly. We save who we can. We comfort who we cannot save. And we do not let them see us cry. Outside, the battle began. Human warships formed a defensive line around the medical vessels. They were outnumbered 10-1. Captain Taesu's voice came over the emergency channel. All ships, this is Endurance. We hold the line. No matter what happens, we do not let them reach the civilians. Lieutenant Hannah worked her console with desperate speed. Captain, we are receiving reports from all 7 colony worlds. They are all under attack. How bad? Bad. Very bad. Taesu nodded slowly. This was the moment he had always known would come. The moment when jokes would not be enough. The moment when laughter met reality. But he would not let his crew see doubt. Not now. Then, we fight harder, he said. Play the music. Open all channels. Let them hear us. Across the human fleet, speakers came alive. Old Earth songs filled the void. Rock music. Pop songs. Battle hymns from ancient wars. The humans sang along, their voices mixing with the roar of weapons fire. On Nova Incheon, Sergeant Woojin led his squad through burning streets. The coalition had returned with 3 times the force they had brought before. Buildings collapsed around them. Friends died beside them. But they kept fighting. Keep moving. Woojin shouted. Keep laughing. They want us to break? We show them what humans are made of. Private Daeho fought at his sergeant's side. He was no longer the scared young soldier from a year ago. He had seen too much. Done too much. Lost too many friends. A coalition soldier appeared in front of him. Daeho fired without thinking. The alien fell. Good shot, Woojin said. You are getting better. I have had practice, Daeho replied. They pushed forward, street by street, building by building. The battle seemed endless. For every enemy they killed, 2 more appeared. Then, Daeho heard a cry beside him. One of his squadmates, a young man named Sungmin, fell to the ground. Blood spread beneath him. Daeho dropped to his knees beside his friend. Sungmin. Hold on, we will get you help. Sungmin looked up at him. His face was pale. His breathing was shallow. He knew the truth. Daeho, he whispered. Tell my sister, tell her I died handsome. He smiled weakly. Then, his eyes closed. Daeho knelt there, holding his friend's hand. Tears ran down his face. But, through the tears, he found himself laughing. A small, sad laugh. He understood now. He truly understood. Laughter was not joy. Laughter was rebellion. It was refusing to let despair win. It was saying to the universe, you can take my friends, my home, my life. But, you cannot take my spirit. He stood up, wiped his eyes, and picked up his rifle. For Sungmin, he said quietly. Then, louder, for all of them. In space above Nova Incheon, Captain Taesu's ship was hit. Explosions ripped through the hull. Fires spread through the corridors. The Endurance was dying. Taesu sat in his chair, blood running from a cut on his forehead. His ship was surrounded. His weapons were failing. There was no escape. He opened a channel to the coalition fleet. Attention, all coalition ships, he said calmly. This is Captain Taesu. You came here to bury us. You brought your biggest fleet. Your strongest weapons. Your greatest warriors. He paused. Smiled. You forgot one thing. Humans are the species that laughs at funerals. We tell jokes at our own graves. You think you can break us? We have been breaking ourselves for thousands of years. We have survived plagues, wars, famines, and disasters. And we did it by laughing. On the Coalition flagship, High Commander Vorik listened to the transmission. His 4 eyes were fixed on the screen showing the damaged human vessel. "He is insane," Vorik whispered. Tae-Soo continued. "So come. Finish us. But, know this, for every human you kill, 100 more will laugh in your face. You cannot kill an idea. You cannot destroy a spirit. And, you will never, ever make us afraid." At that moment, sensors across the battlefield detected new contacts. Dozens of them. Then, hundreds. Human reinforcements had arrived. But, they were not warships. They were civilian vessels. Mining ships. Transport freighters. Personal yachts. Anything that could fly and carry a weapon. Humans from across the sector had come to help. Ordinary people. Families. Workers. Students. They had loaded whatever guns they could find and flown straight into a war zone. And they were all broadcasting the same thing. Music. Laughter. Cheers. For humanity, voices shouted across every channel. General Fessa watched the new ships arrive. She felt her mind begin to crack. These were not soldiers. These were civilians. They had no training. No military ships. No hope of victory. And they were laughing. "Why?" she screamed at her bridge crew. "Why are they not afraid?" No one could answer her. The coalition offensive began to crumble. Not because they were losing militarily, but because their soldiers could not process what they were seeing. Enemies who sang while dying. Civilians who charged into certain death with smiles on their faces. A species that treated war like a game they refused to lose. Morale collapsed across the fleet. General Fessa suffered a complete breakdown. She was found in her quarters hours later, curled in a corner, whispering to herself, "They laugh. They always laugh. Why do they laugh?" High Commander Vorik watched the retreat from his flagship. His massive offensive had failed. 7 simultaneous attacks, and not one had succeeded. He finally understood what emissary Lirith had tried to tell him. The humans did not laugh because they were not afraid. They laughed because they were afraid, and they refused to let fear win. It was the most terrifying thing he had ever seen. On the Busan's Hope, Dr. Yuna treated wounded soldiers through the night. The ship had survived. Many had not. When dawn came, she sat alone in her office and cried. She cried for the dead. She cried for the living. She cried for a species that had to laugh just to survive. Then, she wiped her eyes, took a deep breath, and smiled. The war was not over. But humanity was still standing. And, as long as they could laugh, they could fight. 18 months after the war began, the Galactic Coalition requested a ceasefire. The message arrived at Earth's Orbital Command Center on a quiet morning. There were no demands. No threats. Just a simple request. "We wish to talk." Captain Tae-Soo read the message 3 times. He had expected many things from this war. Victory. Defeat. Death. He had not expected surrender. "They want peace," Lieutenant Hannah said from her station. "I never thought I would see this day." "Neither did I," Tae-Soo admitted. "But I am glad it came." Negotiations were held on a neutral station in deep space. The location was chosen carefully, far from any human or coalition world. Both sides sent their best representatives. Emissary Lirith led the coalition delegation. She walked into the meeting room with slow, careful steps. Her silver skin seemed pale in the artificial light. Her dark eyes carried the weight of everything she had learned. Captain Tae-Soo represented humanity. He wore his dress uniform, clean and pressed despite the scars of war it carried. He sat across from Lirith and waited. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then, Lilith broke the silence. "We have fought 37 wars across 10,000 years," she said quietly. "We have conquered empires. We have destroyed civilizations. We have made gods kneel before us." She paused. Her voice grew softer. "We have never faced an enemy like you." Tae-Su nodded slowly. "We are not special. We are not stronger or smarter than your species. We just learned something a long time ago." "What?" "The universe does not care about us. It never has. It never will. Stars explode. Planets die. Species go extinct. The cosmos watches it all with complete indifference." He leaned forward. "So we decided to laugh at it. Because if the universe does not care about our pain, why should we give it our tears?" Lilith was silent for a long moment. She thought about Jinwoo in his cell, smiling through his wounds. She thought about General Thessa, broken by enemies who refused to fear. She thought about High Commander Vorik, watching his great offensive crumble against an army of laughing civilians. "We did not understand," she said finally. "We thought your laughter was madness. We thought it was ignorance. We did not realize it was strength." The peace treaty was signed that day. Both sides agreed to end hostilities. Borders were established. Prisoners were exchanged. The war was officially over. But something more important began. Cultural exchange programs were created. Coalition scientists came to Earth to study human psychology. Human teachers traveled to alien worlds to explain their history. For the first time in galactic history, species were not just ending a war. They were trying to understand each other. Dr. Yuna published her research 6 months after the peace treaty. She called it The Psychology of Human Defiance. The paper explained everything she had learned about laughter as a survival mechanism. It analyzed human history, human biology, and human culture. The paper became required reading across coalition space. Alien scholars studied it carefully, trying to understand the strange species that had defeated them not with weapons, but with joy. Lilith read the paper 3 times. Each time, she understood a little more. "Humans do not laugh because they are happy," Yuna had written. "They laugh because they choose to be happy. Happiness is not something that happens to them. It is something they create, even in the darkest moments. This is their greatest strength and their most confusing trait. They do not wait for the universe to give them joy. They make their own." Private Daeho returned to his home world after the war. His mother met him at the spaceport. She was older than he remembered, her hair gray, her face lined with worry. She hugged him for a long time without speaking. Then, she stepped back and looked at him. "You are different," she said. "I am," Daeho agreed. "The war changed me." They walked home together through quiet streets. His mother asked the question that all parents ask after war. "How did you survive? When so many did not?" Daeho thought about Sungmin, dying with a joke on his lips. He thought about Sergeant Woojin, laughing in the face of death. He thought about all the friends he had lost, and all the moments of joy they had shared between battles. "I remembered what grandmother used to say," he told his mother. "She would tell me, if you can still laugh, you are still alive." I held on to that. Every time I wanted to give up, every time I wanted to cry, I would laugh instead. And it kept me going. His mother smiled through her tears. "Your grandmother was a wise woman." "She was human," Daeho said. That was enough. Sergeant Woojin stayed on Nova Incheon after the war. The colony needed to be rebuilt, and he was too attached to leave. But he did not return to military service. Instead, he opened a comedy club. It was a small place, just a stage and some chairs in a rebuilt building. He called it The Last Laugh. Every night, humans would gather there to tell jokes, share stories, and remember the friends they had lost. 6 months after opening, the first alien visitors arrived. They were coalition traders, passing through on business. They had heard about the club and wanted to see it for themselves. They did not understand human humor. They did not know why certain things were funny. But they wanted to learn. Wu Jin welcomed them personally. He sat them at a front table and told his best jokes. The aliens did not laugh. They did not understand. But they watched carefully, taking notes, trying to comprehend. After the show, one of the aliens approached Wu Jin. "I do not understand your humor," the alien said. "But I understand that it is important. Will you teach me?" Wu Jin grinned. "That is the first step. Wanting to learn." He poured 2 drinks and sat down with the alien. They talked until dawn. High Commander Vorik resigned from his position after the war. He had led the coalition for 600 years, and he had never known defeat. The failure against humanity broke something inside him. He spent months alone in his quarters, replaying the war in his mind. He watched recordings of human soldiers laughing under fire. He listened to their songs, their jokes, their cheers. He tried to understand. He could not. 1 year after the peace treaty, Vorik traveled to Earth. He did not announce his visit. He did not want attention. He simply wanted to see the world that had defeated him. He walked through the streets of a human city. He watched children playing in parks. He saw families eating together in restaurants. He heard laughter everywhere. Constant, casual laughter. Captain Taesu found him standing in a public square, watching a group of children chase each other across the grass. "High Commander," Taesu said, approaching carefully. "I did not expect to see you here." Vorik did not turn. His 4 eyes remained fixed on the children. "They are so small," he said. "So fragile. And yet they laugh as if the universe cannot hurt them." "Children do not know about the universe yet," Taesu said. "They laugh because it is natural to them. Because they have not learned fear." "And you? You're adults? You're soldiers?" "They have learned fear. They know what the universe can do. Why do they still laugh?" Taesu stood beside the ancient commander and watched the children play. He thought carefully before answering. "Because we refuse to forget what it felt like," he said finally. "To be that small. That innocent. That free. We carry that feeling with us our whole lives. And, when things get dark, we reach for it. We laugh to remember that joy is possible. That hope is real. That life is worth living, even when it hurts." Vorik was silent for a long time. The children continued playing, unaware of the 2 warriors watching them. "How do you teach your young to laugh?" Vorik asked at last. Taesu smiled. "We do not teach them. They are born knowing. We just make sure nothing takes it away." Vorik nodded slowly. Something shifted in his eyes. Something old and cold began to crack. That night, alone in his quarters, High Commander Vorik did something he had not done in 400 years. He looked in a mirror and tried to smile. It was awkward. Uncertain. Wrong in a dozen ways. But it was a start. Years later, historians would write about the human coalition war. They would analyze the battles, the strategies, the politics. They would debate who won and who lost. But the people who lived through it remembered something different. They remembered the laughter. The songs. The jokes told in dark moments. They remembered a species that faced extinction with a smile. And they remembered the lesson that war taught the galaxy. Fear is powerful. It can conquer worlds and break spirits. But laughter is stronger. Because laughter does not fight fear. It transforms it. It takes the darkness and turns it into light. The humans knew this all along. The galaxy finally learned it. And somewhere, in a small comedy club on Nova Incheon, Sergeant Wu Jin raised a glass to the stars and laughed one more time. For all the friends he had lost. For all the battles he had survived. For all the joy that still remained in a universe that did not care. He laughed. And that was enough.